I stayed.
All right. What we'll do, yes?
Yeah, the name is Russ, R-U-S-S.
Okay. Russ. Okay.
Russ, right.
All right. Sorry about that. What we're going to do is we're going to go around here alphabetically. Tell us a little, 2 minutes. Tell us about your time in Vietnam and what you've done afterward. And good. Duke Blanchard has showed up here. And his microphone is working. Okay, very good. All right, so I'm going to start out alphabetically. Actually, it looks like Blanchard is first. So, Duke, 2 minutes.
Whoa.
What you did in Vietnam and what you did after Vietnam.
I went back to Vietnam.
Well, I know that, but the other people don't.
I went back to Benning and stayed there for about a year. Went back to Vietnam with the Maricel Division, 196th Brigade, at a rifle company.
Hey, you retired as a lieutenant colonel?
Yes.
And then what did you do after retirement?
I went to work civil service with Fort Benning. Did some of the same things that I was doing before I took the uniform off.
Okay.
And retired 25 years ago, I guess now. Time flies.
It does.
When was he at Tuyen Nhon and what year and what did he do at Tuyen Nhon?
He was the CO at Tuyen Nhon, and it was from about 11 November 67 to April of 68.
Okay.
And he was just before Rayleigh Macy, and that put him just before Kittredge. All right, let me go on here to John Blevins. John, quick rundown, 2 minutes.
Yes. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Oh,
Okay, that's good. I was worried about that. I got out of after I left Vietnam. I went to Fort Bragg for about a year and a half, and I got out of the Army. Stayed out about 3 years. Had another kid, and it was about 72, and everything was going to shit then. So I decided to go back in the Army again. So I got in. I went back to Fort Bragg. I stayed there about a year and a half in the 7th group, and like I said, such a 10th group in Germany. And I stayed there till 76, and I got out of the Army again, and I found a couple civil service jobs, and I stayed in civil service and retired. And I was forced to retire because of heart problems in 1999. And I got out then. I've been retired in Bardstown, Kentucky. I stayed in the Army for about 12 and a half years, but after I got out, I went civil service, and I ended up doing about 33 and a half years of civil service. Hi, Neil. Long time no see.
Hi, John.
Yeah.
Look, before I forget, I have got a very good collection of orders. I have the 5th group general orders complete, but the special orders I have pieces of. So if some of the people have CIB orders, if I don't have them, I'd like a copy of them. One reason I'd like a copy of them is John hasn't found his CIB orders from Vietnam, and you can't really locate them anywhere. You got to bump into them. So if I don't have your CIB orders, you may have John Blevins' name on your orders. So it's nice for me to have copies of things like that.
Yes, I would appreciate that.
So anyway, next person up here is Neil as number with the letter C. So
Well, unlike John, I just left the Army once. I was just a 3-year guy who joined up in advance of getting drafted, went to officer candidate school in the infantry. Always wanted to go to jump school, and I finally got an assignment to jump school, and then got assigned to the 5th group, or special to Fort Bragg, ultimately leading to the 5th group. I was the XO at Tuyen Nhon for 6 months, serving some time under Captain Blanchard, and then went to Canto as in the S3 shop for my final 6 months. Left Vietnam, went to Fort Lewis, Washington, where my wife awaited me, and left the Army the next day. Most of my career after I went back to college on the GI Bill, and most of my career was in the newspaper business. I worked for Gannett newspapers for a number of years, and then had my own company with a group of weekly newspapers in New England and Maine and Mass and New Hampshire. Now retired, live in Florida 7 months a year, in Minnesota 5 months a year, because this is where my kids are now. I always thought of I always thought of myself. I remember writing my mother when I was in Vietnam saying, look, I may die over here, but it won't be because of the people I serve with, because these guys are just great. I was sort of I wore the uniform, wore the patch, wore the beret, but I never considered myself a real Green Beret in the sense of the enlisted guys or the guys who were career officers. But it was a very enjoyable period of my life, and I'm glad I did it.
all right, I'm going to step out here for a moment to share a picture with you. This is the original team that went, the first PCS team at your camp. And the young man, right here, there are a lot of young men that you have in this picture, but that particular young man over there,
that's me,
is our next guest. So go ahead and tell your story.
Well, I haven't seen that picture in a while, but my name is Clarence Havenfearn. It was at Tuyen Nhon. We were probably, I think we were the first team there. We were at Tuyen Nhon from 64 through 65. And I actually got out of Special Forces in 65 and went off to college and spent 11 years in college. Then I spent a career in health services for 42 years. So I don't see any of my team members here. Our team was 415, and but of course in that email that I guess we all received, 3 members and myself were listed there to come on at this time. I was so hoping to see some of them, because I've not seen any of my former teammates since leaving Vietnam in 65. But it's nice to see all of you guys.
John Gebby was supposed to be here. That's one person who was on your team I know. So I don't know what happened to the others. You've got some background noise. If you're not talking to us, I'm going to mute you now so you come back in if you want to talk. You have to learn how to get your daughter to tell how to unmute when you want to talk.
Steve, you say you heard from Gebby. Did you hear from any of the other team members?
If the name was on the list, each person who was on that list is somebody I talked to. So after this is over with, my phone number is on the list, but if you just click on the name, you can send them an email.
All right.
Okay.
Okay,
John, I know, from a number of occasions. I'm surprised he wasn't here, but um, between VA appointments and the fact that we're getting old enough to not remember what day of the week it is, that's a problem.
yeah.
Okay, Ruben,
Yes, sir.
you're next in line to tell us a little bit about what you did in Vietnam and what you did afterward.
Okay, I didn't spend a lot of time at Tuyen Nhon. I got signed there in October of '66. I had been there about 2 weeks when I believe the captain in charge there was McVeigh. I'm not sure. And they sent me to a CIDG base with one NCO. At that time, I was a second lieutenant. I was there about 2 weeks and I got recalled back to Camp Tow. And the XO, who was Texas Sam Jeffers, interviewed me and told me that Colonel Kelly had ordered that we establish a mobile guerrilla company. We went to Fuqua Island where we trained for about 3 weeks, a bunch of Wahao, and we went on an operation up on Nui Jai Mountain in the Seven Mountains area near Shilan. We stayed up in the mountain about 3 weeks and the Wahao quit. They said they were flatlanders. They didn't want to be in the mountains. At that time, Colonel Marichek had the mic force in 4th Corps. And he showed up with a bunch of his people, and we took all the Wahao back to their home base. It was a real mess. We put them in caraboos, stripped them of all their equipment, took them back. Then I came back to Camp Tow, where I stayed a couple of weeks. Then I went out to To Shao as part of the Mobile Guerrilla Company. Lieutenant Henry Cook was my XO, and then later on, we brought in another captain. I don't remember his name very well. I stayed there another couple of months. During that time, Lieutenant B.T. Collins, who was part of the other Mobile Guerrilla Company, got seriously wounded in an operation down in the Yumin Forest. He lost an arm and a leg. I then went back to Camp Tow, where I became the Assistant 3, and shortly after that I left to go back to the United States. At that time I went back, if I remember correctly, to Fort Jackson, South Carolina, to become a basic training company commander. From there I went to Panama to the 8th Special Forces Group. From there I went to the Ranger Corps. After graduating from the Ranger Corps, as a captain by that time, I then went back to Panama again. After that, if I remember correctly, let me look at my notes. I went to Fort Knox to the advanced course. From there, I went back to Panama again. And then in 66, 67, I went back to Vietnam. From there, I went then back to Bragg, and for a period of time, I had what used to be called Blue Light. By that time, it had become Special Training and Weapons. I stayed there and I retired in 1980. I went to law school in Michigan, and I've been practicing law for the last 36 years. That's about it. I didn't spend too much time in Tuyen Nhon. I was there just about 3 weeks, and then back to Camp Tow and formed the Mobile Guerrilla Company and went on operations with it. Went in a second operation in the Seven Mountains area. We're part of the Mike Force.
All right, Robert Hathaway,
Yes, sir.
you're next.
Well, I was assigned to A411, as we talked Tuesday, for 3 months, and then I was moved to Tuyen Nhon in November of 1968, and Rayleigh Macy was the captain, and then he left, and his name left me. He's on the screen there. The one that has my naked picture.
Kittredge.
We'll
I-
skip that.
Yeah, I hope so. I knew Swen when she was at Me Fructe. I did not, she was not at Tuyen Nhon when I was there. But my experience at Tuyen Nhon was really good. We did a lot of stuff, a lot of things. I was executive officer in the for a while, and I really enjoyed serving with the men that I served with. The medic got killed later on, and that was the only one we lost while I was there. And it was just a real exciting time. I came back from Vietnam, and I was a captain when I came back, and I went to the training center at Fort Bragg to get some command time, thinking I was going to stay in the Army, and they wanted to send me back to Vietnam in about 9 months as an infantry company commander. And I had about 5 days. I had to make a decision. I didn't want to go back that quick. I would come back, especially if I could have been an SF assignment. So I got out, became involved in the pharmaceutical industry, and I retired in 2005, and I have 3 children, and just I've had a good life. I live in Rocky Mount, North Carolina, which is about 90 miles north of Fayetteville, and I've been back to Fayetteville a few times, and that's about the story of my life.
Dave Kirkwood, how about a 2-minute summary of what you did in Vietnam and what happened afterward?
What happened in Vietnam, I had to put up with Leach and Weller for part of the time, right? Yeah, it was a great experience. We never went out twice, like having a virgin date all the time. I don't know of any of these guys we ever spent 2 operations together. When I came back from Vietnam, I went to college, got kicked out of college, tried to think about going back in the Army. They wouldn't have me, so I decided to be a Marine officer. I spent 22 years as a Marine officer, retired in 1994. Had the opportunity to be one of the first guys to cross the border on the Cambodian excursion, along with Lieutenant Page, who I don't see him there. And we had a fun time for about 6 weeks. So, but now I own a gymnastics school for girls, and I live on a private island with gate guards and guns, and life is good.
What rank did you achieve in the Marine Corps?
Lieutenant Colonel.
Well, we had a, I think it was a Spec 5 who ended up as a Marine general.
Yeah, I saw that, but I never ran across him. In the whole time, I think he was a little bit behind me, maybe, but I always thought that I had that fame to claim. But the other guy that went Marines to Special Forces, oh man, now got a Distinguished Service Cross. I met him at Special Forces Association a while back, but he'd been a Marine in NCO and then went into Special Forces. So.
Well, I have a friend here in Houston who was a Marine in Vietnam, and his son went to the Army, and he said, my son was going to go to the Marine Corps, but he failed the IQ test. He too high to put him in Special Forces.
Trust me, the experience that we had, and then the experience I had in the Marine Corps, if you ever asked me, I'd have rather stayed in and been a sergeant major than been a lieutenant colonel. Because in a way, the Marines and their training concept works, but it wasn't quite the same.
One of the things I would like to say about Tuyen Nhon, when Neil and I was there, our team sergeant was Sergeant Sebastian DeLuca. I don't know if you've heard the story. I imagine most of you have.
Yeah.
But he met some Viet Cong supposedly, and the agent told him if he got enough gold together, he could have some of the prisoners of war released. And so DeLuca went to, I think it was Thailand to meet him.
He went to
And,
Laos.
he was found beside the side of the railroad track, shot all to hell, and the gold was gone.
He went to Laos. He was working for JPRC, looking for POWs, and he was frustrated. And somebody gave him this cock and bull story, and he and his girlfriend went up to Laos and ended up getting killed. And anyway, that's another story. Look,
Hey, Steve,
yes,
I got a question for Chuck and Russ. Did you guys know that Walker wrote a book?
Joe Walker.
What?
Which Walker?
Paul Walker, Paul L. Walker.
Paul Walker.
Yeah, he was our team
What was the
sergeant when we
question?
first got there.
No, I had no idea.
Yeah, I found it. He wrote a book. Remember when the boat accident happened?
Yeah.
And you sent me on that damn, I never told you that they put me in a hot LZ on the way to the goddamn hospital. Hey, it's all your fault. You could have fixed it. Anyway, so I found out that he wrote a book, but it doesn't, I mean, he talks about all his life experiences. I had no idea that he'd been in Korea and Laos and all. Only thing I knew, he'd been the team sergeant in 65. I don't think him and I ever had a conversation of any quality. Did you?
No, no.
How
Wow.
about you, Russ?
Oh, with Walker?
Yeah.
No, not very much. A lot with Villamontes, who followed Walker as team sergeant.
Yeah. Okay. All right. I'm sorry to interrupt, but I had to throw that out.
Now Walker wrote a book?
Yeah.
Wow.
Called T. Well, it's on Steve's site.
Okay.
It talk, yeah. Look at that.
Right.
But it doesn't mention it. He mentions me one time, but other than that, other than the combo guy that was there with you, Russ, name escapes me right away. One that got shot and then came back.
Denny Rudolph.
Yeah, Rudolph.
Dennis Rudolph.
Yeah, he mentions how great a guy he was, but he didn't talk about any of the rest of them.
Rudolph was a good man.
Yeah, he ended up at CCN, I think. Lucky guy.
All right, Al, you're up next.
Hey, Al Titters here. I was at Tuyen Nhon from, I think, December of 69 until about March of 68, right? December 68 until March 69. And the only one that I see on here that I know is Lieutenant Hathaway. He was my XO. Good man too, if I remember correctly. Anyway, I went down there and took over from Riley Macy, who was the CO at the time. I left there and went to Tan Tree. The B team commander, West Airline, was having a problem at Tan Tree. Because I was having a problem, my Vietnamese counterpart pulled me out of Tuyen Nhon, so we didn't end up shooting each other, and sent me to, yeah. You maybe remember some of that. We'll maybe tell those stories. But anyway, I went over to Tan Tree, and when I went there, Colonel Haline said there's a problem with the Americans over there, and if you don't get it straightened out, he said I'll find somebody that will. So anyway, we went uphill from there. After I left Vietnam, I went to the career course. And from there, because I was a high school dropout, they sent me to degree completion. I went to University of Tampa for about a year and a half, completed my degree, and pay back for that, had to go back to Vietnam again. And I went back to Vietnam, and I was there at the end of the war. So I've got some stories to tell about that too. But that's another story. Anyway, good to see you guys. And I stayed in the Army, and retired in 1990. Along the way, I went to Command General Staff College, got another degree, and hooked up with a college after I got out of the Army, and was a professor at a college for 28 years and fully retired now, obviously 83 years old. Okay.
Chuck Leach,
I was in Tuyen Nhon from May through December 1969, and Dave's the only one I remember. I know John Blevins from somewhere, and I'll be damned if I can't remember where. I was a junior medic under Perry Browning, who was killed
Right.
the summer that year. Yeah, and I had Chuck Allisor was the captain in charge of that team when I was there, the officer. Hiram Walker, as I called him, Master Sergeant Walker was there. Master Sergeant Williams, I think, was the first team sergeant I had when I showed up there, and they swapped out. I did, like I said, 7 months basically in Vietnam, all at Tuyen Nhon. And then got out and did the only thing I could do, which was some construction work, stayed in it, and ended up building homes and doing some commercial construction for a while, and retired really about 5 years ago, but started to retire about 62 or 63, but I kept at it doing this and that until I was 70. That's it.
Eugene Montoya.
Yes, I got to Tuyen Nhon at the end of November of '69.
Oh, that's right, Kiwi.
Yeah. Anyways, I got there end of '69. I was the XO. I was also the funds officer, and I was also the capo officer for A415. I was there I was supposed to actually go on the insertion into Cambodia, but one day before that, I ended up getting orders to go up to B41 to become the funds officer up there. And I ended up, like I said yesterday, I ended up closing out all the camps when they did the Vietnamization under Nixon, and I also closed down B41. When I left Vietnam, I went back to the 7th group. I got back to the 7th group, and the commanding officer back there ended up putting me on a go team. He says, "You're the only combat experience officer I have in the company." And he says, "I hate to do it to you, but anyways," so I ended up, until I got out, I got out April 1st, 1971. And when I left service, I went into inactive for 3 years, and I missed the jumping. So I went down to Arlington Heights, Illinois, and joined up with the 12th Special Forces Group down there at Arlington Heights. I also later on went out to California and worked at an aerospace company out there for a while. So that's my story.
Russ?
Hey, do you remember your first operation?
Say that again, Russ?
Yeah, I was asking Lieutenant Montaigne if he remembers who took him out on his first stop.
Yeah, you actually took me out on my first operation.
Yeah.
Yes.
That was your escort.
I gotta, Russ, go ahead. When he's finished, I got a quest for the lieutenant there.
Dave, why don't
ahead,
you ask your question and let then Russ put his thoughts together, and he can tell us his story.
All right. Okay, you brought up one of the sore spots Eugene. I came off R&R and I walked in the building and they told me I was going to Cambodia with the new detachment commander that I had never met before in my life. And him and I went on the experience of a lifetime. I left him back in the rear and I just kept going forward as fast as I could get. I'd have much rather had you with me. Much rather.
I wasn't there, but Sergeant Rudolph took my place on that operation, and he was wounded
Yeah.
during the operation.
All right, let's get to Russ Weller. Let's tell me about your time there, and what you did afterward.
Yeah, Tuyen Nhon was my second tour. My first tour was up in Third Corps at a camp called Traku. I was there for a short time. They sent me down to the Delta to the airboat school. Traku was going to get some airboats up there. Got back and they sent me to Hepwa for a little bit, staging for the construction of Camp Dukwe, which was out near the Parrot's Peak. And that was pretty much it for that tour. I came back to the States, and a year later I was back in Fourth Corps this time at Tuyen Nhon, where I was the assistant intel guy and previously weapons also. Did the full year there. Left, they were preparing to turn the camp over to the Rangers, and we were getting a bunch of new people in, new weapons guys and commo guys, etc. After that, went back to the States, spent some time in Valley Forge, and got out of that and decided, well, time to slow my life down. So I went into the security and intelligence world, which I pretty much stayed for, I don't know, the next 40 or 50 years, in and out between the government and private industry. Spent a number of years in Japan, a number of years in Fort Meade. I had a good tour with the old Defense Communications Agency in Hawaii, but unfortunately my wife didn't care too much for Hawaii. So that's pretty much it. I retired out of it's basically a construction company. We were doing a lot of work for the State Department, primarily for the, what is it? Their terrorist assistance program. We built camps in Pakistan, Iraq, Afghanistan. We put one outside of Bogota, Colombia. And the last one I did was in Kenya, right along the coast. And not only did we build the camps, but we maintained the camps and also provided trainers for the locals. And that's pretty much it. I stayed busy.
I got a question for you, Russ.
Pardon?
I got a question for you.
Yeah.
The operation you took me on, the first operation I went on, somehow you took a lot of pictures. And for some reason, I ended up with all your pictures.
Oh,
I don't
no
know
wonder
how
I
I
couldn't
got
find
them. I just was wondering if you wanted them.
Yeah, send them to me.
I'll have to get your address. It must
I'll
be
come back to that question of pictures in a little bit. But
Is that the one where, was that a sampan operation up the canal? Heading toward, okay.
Correct. Yeah.
All right, good.
All right, well, we saved the best for last. So Sweden, tell us about your story.
Okay. Well, I believe, I came to Tuyen Nhon after they closed down the A411, and then I don't know, it probably beginning of or somewhere mid of 69 or something like that. Yeah. And Jim was my boss, and another one was called Bruce Murphy was my boss.
Yeah, Murphy and Fox.
Yeah,
Huh?
Yeah, Jim's supposed to be here today.
Yeah, Bruce Murphy was my boss too. Yeah, I think. I don't know. And I know Rudolph. Yeah, I know Rudolph too.
All right.
And yeah, I was there until they closed on the camp, I think. Yeah. And then went back to Mokwa and got my job with the course, and then later with Consulate General Office until the fall of South Vietnam. Yep. Ended up in jail for 2 years because the communists are accusing me as a spy left behind by American or CIA, whatever. And yeah, they got all of my, I think when they locked me up, and I think they seized my house and family and everything. Yeah, it was bad. It was rough. So I tried to escape the country twice and didn't make it. So ended up in jail again. I think once 3 months and another time for 6 months. And then I say, okay, no more escaping. So I settle down, get married. And I think 1993 that we got the called HO family, HO program to relocate whoever in prison. For people who work for Americans, only 1 year. But for the VN high rank official, they have to be 3 years. So we came to the United States in 95 and settled in Massachusetts. So it was good. Life was good here. And yeah, I just wish to see if any of the member that I used to work with, see how they're doing. And
Well, everybody should know that on the toolbox of the email you got from me, all those emails, or most of all those emails, are people I've just recently spoken to, and you can just click on them and
yeah,
and get direct contact with them.
Oh.
They also, I'm moving from camp to camp, so I've got to sort of move on. And you got that resource, that toolbox that you can use. You can
Okay.
organize your own get-togethers, whole camp, parts of camps, whatever. Feel free to use that, because that's what it's for. That's why I put it together that particular way.
So you email me already? You send me an email already? Did you?
I will make sure you get one. Yeah.
Okay. And also, I have a friend who used to work at the camp 413. I just called her today, and she would, I know the session that was yesterday. I didn't see that, but I spoke to her, and she said she really want to meet all those members from the 413 again. Yeah, she worked here for a long time. Yeah.
No, that would have been nice, but that was the other day. If somebody from here, anybody here from 413? No. What you might want to do is have her sit down in front of her camera and just record a little piece, and then you can send it out to everybody at 413. She can send a little 2-minute greeting on her computer and just save it as a file, and we send it out. All right, look.
I'm not sure if she would know how to do that, but I'll let her know that. Okay.
Help her out.
Yeah.
All right.
She wished to. Yeah.
Okay. Let me show you some of the things that I've got here before we get into the history of the camp. All right. I showed you already the picture of the original team at the camp. So, as I said, I know John Gebby is there, a couple of other people who are on the list. Now, that team was the original PCS team that came into the camp. The the history of the camp was that team actually established the camp at Tuyen Nhon. When they changed over, that became 415. And unlike everybody else, it stayed 415 until the camp was converted to Border Rangers in October of 1970. On the website I've got, there is a link to this map, and I will put that up here. So you got a 1/50,000 map of Vietnam with Tuyen Nhon marked on it here, and you can use that for whatever you may have or later discussion in this time. Also, I have several websites, and I want to point you to this one in particular. Here. I don't have a lot of imagination when it comes to creating websites. I have Special Forces books and I have Special Forces photos. And Special Forces photos, this is the website. You come in there, you sign in with your whole name. This Larry J. Beach did it right. The rest of you guys have screwed up a little bit. But I get attacked by bots of all kinds. And unless I recognize somebody's name, I just automatically throw them out. So come up there and register. And then after I see your name and recognize it, I click this little yellow light bulb thing. And you are then eligible to do whatever you want on the website. What you want to do is if you have pictures, you go to this upload file and you select an album. And the albums, there are albums for every camp in Vietnam. So you go to Tuyen Nhon, and then you upload your picture and you write up the caption for the picture and move on. And if you go up there and you look at it, you see a picture there and you're the third guy from the left, you can go ahead and add to the caption to say, I'm the third guy from the left. So this is a very useful website, and particularly useful because I don't have to do anything other than approve you. And I couldn't possibly put up all the pictures on this website that you guys have. So you got to do it yourself. Red Express is here. Camp Oral Histories, if you click on that on the first page, you'll see the videos that I've done so far. I-Corps is all done. They're all edited. They're all there. The rest of it is there in little pieces all around. If you click on a core area, you'll see a list of camps. You click on the list of camps, you'll see a list of names. And one other thing in here is, I don't know if you remember the Green Beret magazines. There were 52 magazines published in Vietnam. The whole set is there. And you can get those on this this website here. So you really should have it. That's the whole set. There's a paperback and the hardcover. Hardcover is expensive, and the paperback ones are just as good. So unless you have a particular penchant for wanting expensive books, get the paperback ones. Anyway, but they're really great to have. And the nice thing about it is they're indexed. There's 6,000 names in there. Tells you what page to find those names on. So with that, I am going to go back to the group picture here, and let's start with Haven Fern, because he was the earliest one there. We will go chronologically, and people can talk about what happened at the camp at the time they were there. So, Haven?
All right. Well, thanks, Steve. Um, my team, we were actually stationed at Makwa from the fall of '64 until early spring of '65, when the site at Tuyen, which was actually operated I'm not sure if it was with our Vietnamese counterparts or if it was some other kind of group there that was overrun. I'm sorry?
It was a MACV subsector advisory team.
Okay, well, something happened there that created a kind of emergency. They were either overrun or I don't know. But, we got word at Makwa that we had to, hurry up and get there and establish a site. Well, the site, the construction of it was actually done by the Seabees, and we were running around there trying to secure our, Tuyen to make it defendable. And I can tell you, as a young man, I was going to say I was nervous. I was scared as hell. Even today, I still remember I was a radio operator, and I can still say, "Bak bak baka chok bak tai chok dalai." That was the enemy's call sign. I can still hear it today because I always had my headphones on, and I could always tell that they were close. And that bothered me greatly. And there was, one night when we were absolutely certain that we were going to be hit and overrun. We fired a flare into the air just to have greater visibility. And that doggone thing went right into an outpost that was mounted on a stilts or something, and we set fire to it. And there were two soldiers in there, two Vietnamese soldiers in there. And I thought, we're all dead. I mean, if this is the best we can do, if this is going to be our best shots, but I've never felt such fear as I did that night, and especially when I saw our operations officer with tears in his eyes. I felt my confidence waning, but I never loved 11 guys more than those people that I was with. Something happened to our team leader, our captain, Lieutenant Pesson. He left us early while we were still at Makwa, and he never returned, leaving in charge Lieutenant Gebby, who I was hoping to see here, because I never heard about why our captain never returned to us. One day I decided to look him up on the internet, and Jesus, I learned that 2 years earlier he had died, and he had gotten out of the service and had operated a hardware store. So anyway, I have longed to know more about what happened to the team. I left the team early. We were supposed to rotate back here, I think, in October, and I left right at the end of August to enter college. I had extended my stay in the military for 3 months because I didn't want to be on the streets at my regular discharge date. I just thought I'd get into too much trouble. I had applied to college and had been accepted, so I extended my stay in Vietnam for 3 months. At the time, with combat pay and jump pay, I was getting a salary of $805 a month. I knew I wouldn't be able to earn that kind of money. I thought that was a lot of money. I knew I wouldn't be able to earn that in a 3-month period out on the street. So I stayed there until just 6 days before I was to enter college. So I got out, walked out of the Army and into the classroom. But, and I've always had second thoughts about that because the Army almost bribed me when my turn came up for me to re-enlist. I was called to Canton, where I met with some officers who showed me the paperwork where I'd been promoted to E6. And there was a bonus associated with that, a large sum of money, as I recall. I don't remember the exact amount. And that was the hardest day, trying to decide, because I had joined the military to make it a career. But now they're shooting at me, and that changes your mind really quickly, and so I had an opportunity to do something different, to get out of the heat. And but I've always regretted that I didn't stay to retire. But I also feel fortunate that I was able to succeed after getting out. But anyway, that's.
Who is the American Legion here?
I'm in the Legion.
No. There's a person on the line who's using an American Legion computer. Who is that? Is that Martin Brady? Hello? Hello? Well, if we'll find out who that is. I'm not really sure who it is. I was guessing it was Martin Brady because I was expecting him, and he doesn't have a computer of his own.
Martin Brady was our medic.
That's right. That's why I'm trying to roust him out here.
Yeah, that guy fired the first mortar at the enemy that I ever saw, and it scared me to death. I thought, is that the way you do it? I mean, we had just arrived at Makwa, boy, and it was the free fire zone, and Martin runs right over to the 81, and swoop down the job. It's somebody on the sandpan, a mile away, oh my goodness. He also kind of saved my life. I was complaining to him that I had a never-ending headache that wouldn't go away. And he said to me, I'm never giving you anything else. You've got to calm yourself down. Anyway.
So whoever's down here using the American Legion post computer, would you identify yourself? No, that's not happening. Okay. Duke, you seem to be the next person in line here. Go ahead. Duke, are you there? Okay. I guess the next one would be Al.
Duke is still showing muted. Maybe you don't know how to.
Yeah, I tried to tell him to unmute, but he has not unmuted.
Yeah. Anyway, I think I've said quite a lot already, but anyway, while I was there, I took over from Riley Macy, and shortly after I got there, we had the airboat operations came on in. Not the airboat operations, but the swift boat operations came on in. The Brown Water Navy, and believe it or not, John Kerry was a part of that team. And because I was a captain and he was the equivalent of a, he was a lieutenant, I guess, in the Navy. But he would run one of those swift boats, and I got to know him. And at that time, because we didn't know anything about it, I didn't know that later on in life he turned against the war and all that stuff. But we were just both trying to stay alive.
All right.
But one of the things that I remember about, because the working with the Navy is,
right here.
well, I was there, the only American that I felt responsible for was killed, and that was PFC Dallas Pageant. And I know that and Lieutenant Hathaway remembers it. But
It's rolling chair across the hall.
let's see, am I still on, or what's going
You're
on?
still on. You're still on.
Okay. Anyway, and I was hoping to see John Jewell on this thing because I saw his email, but John was with Dallas when that he was killed, and the way we operated with the brown water Navy is they would go up and down the canals at nighttime, hoping to draw fire. And they supposedly turned into the fire and everything. And then we were in a LST right behind them. And we would take and pull off on the side where the ambush was coming from and try to get in back of the ambushing site. Well, didn't take too long for the VC or the MVA or whoever was there to get that figured out. And they set up a pretty good ambush one night. And knocked a couple of the swift boats almost out of the water, and the swift boats had to go into shore to prevent themselves from sinking. And as talking to Sergeant Jewell afterwards, he and Dallas were on the upper deck of the LST, where they probably shouldn't have been. But it was, hot, humid, and all that stuff. And they should have been down the well along with the CIDG troops. But anyway, whatever it was, when that John turned to Dallas and said, "Are you all right, Dallas?" Dallas was laying there in a pool of blood, and he'd caught around right underneath the chin, as I understand it. And he, probably killed him instantly, but they certainly bled out right there. And it wasn't any hope of enveloping the enemy at that time, because 2 or 3 of the swift boats were almost sinking, and we'd taken a lot of casualties. So the Brownwater Navy, whoever was in charge at that time of that particular supposed ambush site, set up, called in for reinforcements and called in, got medevac and everything, and brought the troops back to camp and limped on back with the swift boats. And I remember the following day sending Bob Hathaway into Saigon to identify Dallas's body. I'm sure Dallas can probably speak to that. Anyway, the only American that during my time that was KIA. And I heard somebody mention Perry Browning. Perry Browning was our senior medic, and I remember Dallas and Perry. They set up as a dispensary, and it was basically our hospital for all the CIDG and everything. And they ran clinics out of there. And I remember going there one time and watching them deliver a baby. And we ended up making a big sign and everything, and put pageant dispensary. Named the dispensary after Dallas, and Dallas was not a medic, or was not a special forces medic. He was on loan to us from from MACV. MACV was just getting set up, and they still didn't have their compound or anything in Muckwa, and they didn't have any teams out in any place. So we being short medics all the time, they sent him, they sent Dallas to us, and he became part of the team. He wasn't SF, he wasn't even jump qualified, but he was a part of the team, and we took him out on patrols and all that stuff, just like everybody else. And it was a good medic. We sent a beret along with other accoutrements to his parents in Texas. Then his mother took and, corresponded back and forth with me a couple of times. I wrote the letter, incidentally, the dreaded letter. But anyway, she corresponded back and forth a couple of times. She tried to contact John Jewell, but she complained to me that Jewell would never answer her. And what can I say? But later on in life, on some of the SF boards, actually on the Vietnam virtual wall, they have a spot there where you can look for people you knew and all that stuff. And I did, and I found Dallas's name there, and I put a little memorial to him. And I'll be damned if right out of the blue, his cousin contacted me, and I'm in pretty regular contact now with several members of Dallas's family. And I've sent him different things and photographs and things like that. Matter of fact, I even, the book that I wrote, Dallas has several pages in there.
Al, send me a note so I can add him to the list of people. He's not on my cap list because he wasn't assigned, but I'll go ahead and add him as other personnel.
All right, that would be great, because Dallas was one of us.
Yep.
And unfortunately, KIA.
Jim Fox, we're doing this chronologically right now. So when it comes time for you, just learn how to turn on your microphone and do it. You don't see Swin, who's on the camera right now. I don't know if she's hiding or gone out to get a drink of water, but she's here as well.
Okay.
Duke, you got your microphone under control now? Can you talk about your time at the camp?
Yeah, I'll turn it off.
No, don't turn it on. Tell us your story.
Good.
What did he say?
They want to know your story.
My story?
At the camp.
I don't know. I got to 415 and relieved Chuck Leach. And hello, Chuck.
You were none too soon, Jim.
Yeah. And sorry to say, your relief was a KIA.
Yeah.
Remember us talking about that?
Yeah.
And he was shot in the back of the head. And anyway, I was the only medic there until what's his name showed up.
Murphy, I think.
Who?
After Chuck left, wasn't it Murphy was the next one?
Yeah, I've got his name on that green sheet that you sent, but he didn't come until, I don't know, October. So I got there in, I think, September, and stayed, and we ran a lot of medevacs to the 7 villages down on the river. Spent some time up at the FOB. We did a rotation up there. Let's see.
Jim, let me hold off. Hold off on you for a little bit until we get up to the later time of the camp. I got a couple of people here earlier than you. I'd like to get in here in the chronological order. So just hold on for a bit.
Okay.
Okay. Duke, Alfred, Blanchard, Duke Blanchard. Can you hear me?
Hello? Yes, I can hear you.
Okay. All right. Tell us, you were there before Al Kittredge was there. Tell us about that time.
I didn't hear that.
Tell us about your time at Tuyen Nhon.
The things that I remember, and I was watching the A411 briefing the other day, and about the woman with had a leaky tit. That was the captain that was trying to correct that was me, if you recall that story. They had two NCOs come up to me and say they didn't think it was a good idea to call her that. And later on, she came forward and said, "Look, we tit no leaky no more." It was kind of reminded me of that. But I think TET was the big issue there. We went through TET 68 there at Tuyen Nhon, and it was, I guess, compared with much of the rest of the country, it was pretty mild for us. As I recall, it wasn't all that big of a deal. Later, we found out it was a big deal.
This guy I was with, and quick, that picture.
But you see, I stayed there until about May, I think.
I think I'm on next.
April, May.
And then you went on to the B team at that point? All right. Let me move on to Bob Hathaway. You were there at the same time as Al was?
I was there a little bit before Al, and then Al came, and it was a pretty exciting time there. And Al was an excellent CO. He had a lot of things going on, and he's right. The LLDB company commander wasn't the easiest guy to get along with. In fact, I have a lot of suspicions about him, but he was on the take, I think. But we had some good other Vietnamese SF guys that we worked with that were very reliable and safe. I remember going on operations up to the French Fort, up to near the Parrots Beak, and I remember when Dallas Paget got killed. It was terrible. That's one of the worst memories I have of Vietnam, is going to identify him, which was, I feel so sorry for those guys that worked in the morgue, because they saw everybody that was killed, and it was pretty emotional. And another emotional thing, the guys from Mi Phu Tay 411 sent me a puppy on a helicopter, and I named her Sweet Pea. And I left, one of my memories of leaving Tuyen Nhon on the dock, they came and picked me up in an airboat, and I mean a river ox, and she was sitting on the dock out there when I left, and that's the last thing I saw of Tuyen Nhon was my Sweet Pea sitting on the dock. And I wondered what happened to her. I wondered if Mr. Leach, Sergeant Leach, remembers her, and I hope she didn't get eaten by anybody, but she was a really good dog and a really good friend. And I went to the FOB twice. It was kind of exciting up there. I went on several of those riverine operations, which Elmer Zumwalt ordered, and it never made any sense to me what we were doing. A lot of people got shot up on those boats, those PBRs. And a fun thing we used to do, we would get in the Seahawks and take 3 hand grenades and go up to the Vamcote and go up the middle of the river and drop those grenades about every 50 feet and catch fish. And all the villagers would come out. They really loved us because the fish would come up to the top, and we would have some fresh fish to eat. And one other story, the Navy riverine force that was attached there. They, Captain Kittredge remembers they would supply us every now and then with some pretty good food. We'd trade them for a flag or a weapon or something for steaks or some fresh meat. And Christmas Eve, no, or New Year's Eve or Christmas, it was New Year's Eve, I think. We shot up a mortar round and it something happened to it, came down and everybody was sitting in the team house and the damn thing came right through the ceiling. It didn't blow up, thank God, because it killed everybody in there. Those Navy guys were in there and boy, did they went back to the ship. They didn't come back up there for a while, but that was kind of a funny thing that happened. But
I remember that.
We had good relationship with the people that were that we worked with. And we had a company of Cambodians that were a little bit different. And my memories are that we had some good times. We had some tough times. We ran some good operations. We did a lot of good PSYOPs work and a lot of good medic work. Perry Browning was an excellent medic. Sorry he got killed. And another guy that I loved dearly was Robert Andrade. I mentioned him the other day. He got transferred to the B team in May, I think. And in July, he was killed in dropping a mortar down the full deuce round. It was booby trapped and killed at Muckwa. Well, I don't know what the situation was with it, but he had, I think, 4 tours. He was on his 4th tour in Vietnam when that happened. But I loved all those guys. And everybody got along good. We didn't have any issues at all, and it was a good time. And I'm glad I experienced it. I didn't get hurt. Could have a few times, but I enjoyed it. Enjoyed serving under Captain Kittredge.
If who is this is there, tell me who it is. If it's not, we're going to go on because we missed John Blevins. You were out when we talked when Duke Blanchard was there. That was your time. You were there a little earlier. John?
Yes, I remember Captain Blanchard at that time was there for just a couple of months. He replaced our CO who married the Mama Son's daughter and went to Thailand and married Mama Son's daughter and come back, and he come in a team house and told us all we were all running around that time in shorts and flip-flops and all that stuff. And he said, this is an officer's lady and you will treat her like a lady at all time. You will be dressed in full uniform to include the Green Beret at all times. Well, that lasted just a very short time, and Captain Blanchard replaced him. I saw him one time after that. He came back to the airfield and got off a chopper, and he was assigned to an artillery unit after that. I don't know if Neil was there at that time, or if Neil had left before that happened. Do you remember him, Neil?
I don't see Neil here right now. He seemed to have disappeared.
Oh. Yeah.
So.
Hello.
Oh, excuse me.
Hello.
Go ahead.
Yes. Swin?
Yes, I am.
Oh, there she is. Jimmy, there she is.
Yeah.
Yes.
You see Jim Fox here?
No.
Well, he's there, right on the screen. Jim?
Yeah, I'm here. Hello, Swin.
Hi.
How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing good.
Yeah. Wow. 50 years, huh?
I worry about you for all of these years.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I've been thinking about you guys now. Ever since you got sent back to the state because of the wounded, what happened? That day you didn't come back to the camp.
Yeah, no, I got shot up down in Little Nui Jai down in the Seven Sisters.
Oh.
And they medevaced me to Kanto, to the third
Yeah.
surge, or third field.
Yeah.
And I spent 3 days there on whole blood. And then from there, they took me to the third field, or third surgical in Saigon.
Mm-hmm.
And there they amputated my right leg. It's a BK below the knee. And then they went to Camp Drake in Japan for 17 days and then back to the States. So it was a lot of confusion going on. For the pain, I was not too happy, or I couldn't even think, because they had me on drugs for a week.
Yeah.
After I got shot up.
Oh.
Both shot up and landmine.
Yeah.
But
yeah, I think at that point you who was the other medic? You know, like I think Don Palmer.
let me look right quick. I'll tell you.
Donna Palmer.
Yeah, it was
Murphy.
Murphy. Yeah.
Murphy. Yeah.
Yeah.
And
Bruce Murphy.
Bruce Murphy. Yeah. And then
Yeah.
Donna Palmer too. I think Donna Palmer too, right? I don't know.
He came after, had to be after
Yeah.
towards the end, because I don't remember him at all.
I don't either.
I mean, all I remember.
He's not on our list.
He may have been on the other team that you were on. Chuck,
Yeah.
you come into play just before this. Chuck Leach.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I was, we did a lot of civic action patrols, like Jim was saying there, around the area. I did some work up at the FOB, if everybody remembers that little waterlogged camp up the Songvam-Cote River a little bit. I was up there one night in October when an Air Force jet was either shot down or crashed. And it was right off the Parrot's Peak, apparently. And I went with what Vietnamese troops we had, CIDG that we had, from the FOB to the location where that pilot trying to do a search and rescue or whatever. And I think we spent the best part of the night getting up there, and they had flares going and all that stuff all night long. The next morning, I think it was early in the day, I found the pilot's torso.
Oh yeah.
And that was it. And we ended up getting, anybody remember Lieutenant McKay? Mac?
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah, Mac.
Bob McKay.
Well,
Bob
Mac,
McKay.
Mac ended up with me when I found the pilot's torso. And I told him we're going to take a parachute flare here, and I'm going to cradle it in my arms, and I'm going to try to get it underneath his body, and you're going to roll his torso up into that so we can secure it, and get him out of here. And it had been Chuck and Mac since I got there. You know what I mean? That was it. There wasn't no lieutenant or whatever. And that was the first time he said to me, he said, "Sergeant Leach, there's going to have to be a different way."
The Navy got really upset because you remember you put that torso in their cooler?
Yep.
And they got, the cook went in there and didn't know anything about it, and he just blew his mind.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I could have gone to jail over that.
Yeah. We could have gone to jail over a lot of stuff.
Yeah. Yeah.
No, not really.
Yeah.
Well, the interesting part of that, of course, once we got back to camp, the medevac came in and I don't know why we didn't get one out where I was. Maybe I was too close to Cambodia or I don't know why. But
That's why.
we got back to the team, got him out of there, and I never did know what the man's
Who
name
he was.
Huh?
You know who he was?
I do now, yeah. They had the traveling wall came to Pennsylvania, maybe 15 years ago, maybe 20 years ago. And I'd taken another Vietnam veteran down there. He'd never been to the wall in Washington. So I invited him to go with me down to the wall so he could look up some names and do whatnot. And while he was doing that, I was chatting up a gal that worked with the wall, the traveling wall. And she said, you know, I'd already visited Perry Browning's name and another one. And then I said, I'd visit another one, but I don't know the fellow's name. And I said, he was a pilot that got shot down. And she said, well, hell, but I don't know his name. She said, hell, that's easy. You know how many planes were shot down in South Vietnam? You know, damn few. So I got the date and the location as approximate as I could get it, what province it might have been in. And she brought his name right up. It was George Andrews. He was a captain, flew with the 615 Tactical Fighter Squadron out of either Cambodia or Thailand. And that was his first mission, his first flight mission in country. And he either got shot down or crashed in. But I found that from her, and then I searched around all over the internet trying to find out where he might be buried. And as it turns out, he is interred just inside the Maryland line, just south of here. I can be there in less than an hour. And every year on his anniversary, I go back and clean his gravestone. Go back and put a new American flag and brush it, you know, scrub it up as best I can. I've never seen anyone else there, but I am, you know. Yeah.
Dave, you start coming in the story again here. And I see you have a Silver Star from sometime in May of 70. Is that involving a Cambodian incursion?
Yeah.
Tell us about it.
Oh, okay. You want to start there, or do you want to start from the beginning?
Start from the beginning.
All right. Beginning is, this is a good one. I'm in college on a basketball scholarship, and I got a cousin that was an Air Force pilot. And on his way to Vietnam, he comes by, and I'm telling him, you know, I think I flunked out. And he said, you need to go into service. I said, why? So we got the GI Bill. So I said, why not? So I go in airborne unassigned, go through airborne infantry, volunteer for special forces at 19, go to special forces training, start with being a medic after being 11-4 Bravo or 11 Bravo. That was taking too long. So Pete Kivlin and I decided we need to do something else. So they moved us into engineers. So we completed engineering. I go to Fort Bragg. Guess what I do at Fort Bragg? I go to the 6th Special Forces Group. What do? I play basketball for Fort Bragg. I want to go to scuba school. So Sergeant Major says, got to volunteer for Vietnam. You can go to scuba school. So I said, okay. So I volunteer for Vietnam. So I'm up at Fort Belvoir for advanced engineering, and I get orders to scuba school. And then I get orders to Vietnam. So guess which one worked? So I go to Vietnam. So I go there, and Kevlin and I get on the same plane, right? And we go through the whole shoot match together. We leave on, so we volunteer. I volunteer for CCN, CCC, and CCS. I get sent to Tuyen Nhon because Tuyen Nhon has a major engineering project. Remember the 105 that sit outside?
Yeah.
For duffel bag? Right. I had to build this friggin' fire pit for 105 to fire. So so for those of you who don't remember, with the Navy down on the other end,
right,
they seeded the northern part of our AO.
Right.
And so them suckers would fire all friggin' night at any time. So we had to do that. So then the suckers decide, because see, they lied to you. When you're an enlisted man, they lied. All you officers can appreciate that. You know, you're supposed to be a sergeant when you finish special forces training. Why did I go to Vietnam as an E4? So they have a promotion board. Just so happens my good friend was at 413, and we got to go up, fly down to Canto, go up to Benoit and do a promotion board. And then we get to come back. So that was a great experience. I didn't have that. That was a great experience. It was great. Now the guy's name, for all you that think about it, I'm going to tell you this one time. His name is Walter B. Foote. It comes into play later. All right. So we have a great time. We come back, and I'm ready for some gunfighting because I think I've been on one operation at that time. So it comes up that Paul Fyack, first lieutenant, and Staff Sergeant First Class Carrillo are going to go down to New Dakota on the Seven Mountains. Okay, because that's what and Jim talked about. They took the A teams and rotated a company down to the Seven Mountains. And this is a little bit after Morris received his Congressional Medal of Honor during that same kind of stuff down there. So I was pissed because I didn't get to go. So they said, okay, well, we need you to go up to the FOB. Well, I'm the engineer. I'm responsible for rebuilding the camp and doing all this shit. And I'm thinking, why the hell am I going to go? So I get in a damn boat, and they just had fixed the 40 horsepower Boston Whaler that we used to water ski on, because we would water ski with that boat. Son of a bitch, I go to pull the damn starting thing, and it was in gear. It threw me out of the boat. Now I've got my BAR on, I got my M16, I got all this shit. It throws me out of the boat. Then the friggin' propeller cuts my upper bicep on my left arm. And that sucker right there, better known as Chuck Leach, wouldn't fix it. Because he looked down and saw the brachial artery there and said, this is too much for me to have to worry about.
Yeah.
So it puts me on a medevac, and that friggin' medevac lands in a hot LZ on the way to the third surge. So I survived that. He mentioned the FOB. Tuyen, did you ever go up to the FOB?
Who?
I didn't even, Lieutenant
Oh,
Montague. I didn't even know it was there. And all of a sudden you're going to go up the FOB. So after I came back out of the hospital, which was a spiritual experience, my arm busted open twice. So I went up the FOB. It's all on 55-gallon drums, the whole damn camp. And it's infested with rats. And I wake up one night and there's a friggin', I still got my bandage and I'm still seeping a little bit, right? Fuck, I said, the fuck with this. I'd sit out there at night with the 45 and start shooting them fucking rats. So that was a good one. Then they sent me up to, I go down to New Dakota with Frank, and I go to New Dakota, I think. I think it was Frank, because I asked Russ and he said it wasn't him and it wasn't you because you already left, and it wasn't Jimmy. So
I was down there for a while.
Yeah, but you were there, it was in December.
No, I wasn't.
So it's probably at the end, you were down there before, but so at the end of December, so go down to New Dakota. Well, okay, at the end of October, Fyack and Carrillo got the shit shot out of them down there. Fyack got Distinguished Service Cross and Carrillo got a Silver Star. They both got meted back to the States, so we never saw them again.
Yep.
Well, so I'm a little nervous. So evidently I took too many of them friggin' pills that keep me awake. So then the next thing I remember that these little, because I was the engineer, I had a special group of guys that took care of me. So we were down there, so these little guys were carrying me off the damn mountains in LZ, right? I spent 2 weeks in the hospital, the CIDG hospital at Chilang for them trying to figure out what the fuck was wrong with me, right? Well, fever of undetermined origin. Well, no shit, I OD'd on them fucking uppers because I was, trying to stay awake. I mean, to this day, we put the 50 cal down at the trail with a starlight scope on it. I swear to God, we shot like 24 of them little fuckers running down the trail one night. I mean, we were having, but I just couldn't go to sleep. But the highlight of that tour was Johnny Grant and his beautiful women came through, and I'm the only American in the damn hospital. It was wonderful to have all that attention. So then I get back, and so now it was January, and we start doing them crazy friggin' sampan operations. And we're not really finding a lot of contact. But the one thing that, Chuck, you missed this, and Russ and Jimmy, you remember, those night hunter killer team things we had to do.
Yeah.
Yep.
What was it?
Stupidest fucking thing I ever seen in my life. You put a bunch of guys down on an airstrip with a what we had 4 slicks and 2 gunships and maybe a CNC ship, and we're gonna get inserted at night because Snoopy flying the border saw movement, right?
All right.
So I remember this distinctly. Part of it. I think I was on the airstrip when it happened, but the cycle rotated. So every A team or multiple A teams had those slick packages. Well, 413 had one. And on March the 6th, they got inserted. And my best friend at the time in Vietnam was Bruce Foote, and he was one of the sergeants, along with Master Sergeant Stevens, that got inserted on the back of an NBA battalion.
Yep.
And they got the shit shot out of them, and they get killed. So for 50 some years, I had survivors guilt,
Vietnam 18.
right?
Yeah.
Because I got a Silver Star for that shit in Cambodia, and I know what the hell Bruce went through. And when you go to the wall, it wasn't there. So there was a point in time that I was searching Special Forces stuff, and I found it. I found finally that they did award him a Silver Star posthumously, and they named the chapter in the Special Forces Association, Arizona, in his honor. Before COVID, at the 5th, they have a special celebration of his remembrance at Safford, Arizona, on Memorial Day weekend, in remembrance of his passing. So I said, I'm going to go. Well, COVID hit. 2021, my best friend from Marine Corps and I left Jacksonville, Florida, played golf all the way out to Safford, Arizona. I got to meet his sister. I spoke at his memorial, and I told him how he died, because evidently nobody had a clue that it was at night, and it's one of the most dangerous operations that we ever did.
Yeah.
And so I had that opportunity for closure. So that was great. Well, I go on R&R, and they screwed up my R&R order. So I had to spend 2 weeks in the R&R process. I come back, and I walk in, and we have a new detachment commander. So this is late April of 7. And they looked at me, and they said, "You're going to go to Cambodia with the lieutenant." Okay, just because I'm the youngest guy, I was. Is this a special thing I get to do, or the fact that you guys decided that I was just so good that you had to go? So I'm taking the lieutenant. We put a composite battalion together. There were 4 companies from 4 different A teams under the command of the XO from B-41. And to this day, the original orders that you read about said we crossed on the 1st of May. I remember this, and that's why my Silver Star citation pisses me off, because it was the 25th of April. I crossed the border on the 25th of April with a recon team, and we just kept going. And then it's like when the citation finally caught up with me a year later, it said 31 May, and I'm looking, I said, hey, he's not, is he on there? Boy, what a piece of work. Don't you dare laugh. That boy was a piece of work. So, so that ended. So I come back, I got bored. So I went back to Cambodia for like a couple of weeks before I deroast. And I came out of that. That's when I got the only leech. Not you, Chuck, but the real ones. I came back, and then, the thing, you guys, a lot of you guys were career guys. With me, I still say this, I passed through. They didn't ask me to re-enlist. They didn't ask me if I wanted to extend. They just knew that they were closing all the A teams down. There were no jobs. And the guys that you would talk about, like Russ and the other guys that were careerists, going back to the States, were getting ROTC jobs. And so I got out, went to college, played basketball, got kicked out of college, and then went to the Marine Corps. Now, some of the highlights of my Marine Corps career is really, I did the president's inauguration in 1985. I did 4 years at recruit training, parasailing, training recruits and officers. I spent 3 years at Marine Corps Command and Staff College as an instructor. I went to Okinawa and spent the last 3 years of my tour traveling all the Far East, training all the military, the joint training exercises we had. So, I mean, it really worked out great, but, you know, it was, took me a long time to come to grips with special forces and, you know, cause I always felt I passed through, you know, that I was just one of those guys that went through and, you know, had that experience, but I wouldn't have traded it for the world. And, you know, I made it through okay with the post-stress stuff, but I reflect every day about where I was, what I was doing. And the other thing that you got, I mean, I don't know if I'm crazy or not, but we never really got close to each other. Maybe the medics did, but the rest of the guys, I mean, we played poker together.
Yeah.
Occasionally, like I said, the rotation of guys going ops would be, you never went with the same guy twice.
Right. Right.
But we didn't spend a lot of time, because when you think, I mean, we knew the event. I mean, it's like when Lieutenant Brown got shot. You know, he was there for like, what, 3 months, or he was there that long. You know, and it just kept rotating through. So it was, you know, and I think a lot of people have a hard time understanding that, because when you go out on an operation, the first time I went out, you know, Frank looked at me and said, "I want you over there. We'll talk on the radio. If you really need me, I'll come. But other than that, you're over here and I'm over here." And we both had radios, so that's kind of how it worked the whole time.
Yeah.
But and now I work with girls in a gymnastics school I opened in 1995, and we're in the process of trying to expand it. So I can't complain. Life has been good.
Jim, this is your time that you were there.
Could I have a little interruption here? Could I say goodbye to Jim?
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Jim, it's so good to see you again. And
Okay. Stephen's got all of my information. If you'll get with him, I'm on Facebook. He's got my email, my phone number, and sometime we could get together, you know.
Oh, I would love to. Would love to. Okay. Well, take good care of yourself. Okay. I'm so glad to see you again.
You too. My favorite picture of you where we were coming back off of Medcap, and you're in Tigers with your little blue bonnet, sitting in the chair that Carpenter built for us.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's my favorite picture.
If you got that picture, I would bet that she does not have any pictures from you. So you
could you send me one?
Okay, I've got to find them. They have been lost over the years, and I've been searching for them for over a year.
Okay, so if you could find some, I would love to have it. Okay.
Okay.
Take good care of yourself, and then we'll meet again someday.
All right, you too.
Yeah,
Bye-bye.
take care. Bye-bye now.
All right, Jim, talk about your time there. You had said some things about it before, but chronologically, you were there at this particular time at the beginning of 1970.
Yeah, I came in the end of the summer in '69 from the 10th Special Forces, and when I got out of training group, they moved us to Batox, Germany, and I was there for like 2 months. They moved us back to Fort Devens, and they did a lockdown on the 10th as far as anybody going to Vietnam. And I tried, I don't know if everybody remembers Miss Anderson at the Pentagon that you could call.
Miss Alexander, Billy Alexander.
Yeah.
And she would get you an assignment. I called her and she said that, you know, they wouldn't let anybody out of the 10th to go to Vietnam. So what I did was re-up, and my duty station of choice was Vietnam. So I you know, it might seem dumb to you all, but I was career and I had to get my, ticket stamp. And anyway, I ended up in, as soon as I got in, I was at a month or two in the train, and they were short of medics there, so I could fly chase for some of the projects. And after 2 or 3 months, then they moved me on down to Tuyen Nhon. I got there. Chuck was the medic. I don't think there wasn't another medic except you, right, Chuck?
Perry Browning had been killed that summer.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was the only medic there when you came on.
Right. And he broke me in. I mean, what he taught me helped me through the getting the villages back. They really didn't like us after the episode of his treatment. He gave him the wrong IV. Remember that? And they kind of turned on the medics and then on the special forces. So we did a lot of med caps, and I remember you remember the cook? I can't remember her name.
Tuyen.
Oh yeah, remember you'd always squat, go up to her and squat because she would think you were going to pull her pants down.
I did, yeah.
Yeah, but she made great donuts, so.
Oh, great, and Fred did great apple pie. But anyway, after that, Paul Walker, he was a China Marine before he got in Special Forces. He was our team sergeant, and he had been wounded somewhere on some operation on one of the previous tours of his. And he didn't believe in going to the field without a medic. So every time Paul went to the field, I went with him. And then my time would rotate up to go to the field, and he didn't go with me, and I would go with somebody else. But he taught me an awful lot. We used to call him, let's see, Hiram Walker was his nickname after the whiskey. And I was there when Captain Ellenser was captain. Yeah. And he got relieved. I don't know if y'all know it, because I helped him with when we had pay them the sedge monthly. Well, I'd give them, booster shots. Sometimes it's just oral saline. But we'd mark them with mifepristone. So what they were doing was running the ghost through several times, and then all that money went to the head of the LLDB, the captain over there. We did a study and caught a bunch, and he wrote a big expose on it and turned it in. And I don't know, a week or two later, he was gone, and that's when Brown came in.
Brown came in? Wow.
But he got ripped. I mean, he got. They took because he did that. Is why they turned it. Anyway, he and Frank Lopez and I, when he was going out, we went, all three of us went to James O and went down to 33 Club and had a send off for him, and he's quite a gentleman. Anyway, I did most of my work with the 7 villages and with the sedge. We finally got them where they would trust us enough to, when you would go to a village, there's initially was 2 or 3, and it ended up to be 50 or 60. And when Swin came from, she was down you go to Tuyen Nhon, turn south. It's about 30, 40 miles from our side. I don't know what A side she was on where I brought her back. But with her and Talk, if y'all remember Talk, he was a medical interpreter.
Yep.
He was also a Viet Minh, a major in the Viet Minh against the French. But Talk and I got to be good friends. I got to be good friends with the interpreters. There was one there, and in that picture, if you look at the one you sent me, David, of where Frank and I are sitting there playing poker, and there's one interpreter around to the side. He was a snitch to the LLDB, we found out.
Shoot.
But anyway, and then the other one that was funny was Tweety. When what's Frank's brother's name? He was
Ray.
Yeah, Ray.
Ray.
Yeah, before he left, or before we got there, and when he was first there, Tweety, I don't know if you remember him. He's a hell of a, couldn't play poker with a damn, but he had lost $300 in a poker game, and he didn't have the money to pay for it, so he went AWOL over the wall for about 6 months. Well, he showed back up, and Frank knew him. I know, Ray knew him.
Right on.
Yeah, so we made him pay everybody back. But, and then there was Fred that ran the projectionist or projection machine.
Yep.
Israel talk.
Yeah, Low Tide was Fred's brother.
Yeah, his brother was our clerk typist.
Yeah, Low Tide.
Yeah. And anyway, mainly all I can, I remember now is just operations, medevacs, and then I went to New Ikoto 3 different times. And the last time is the one that got me. And the officer I went with when we were getting where they came in and fired, go back just to check us out. Well, the next day he had a tooth appointment that he had to go make. And I was out there by myself with the siege when, I hit the mine and got shot. And anyway, I don't have a whole lot of respect for him. I don't know who he was. I can't remember his name. After that, it was just to the hospitals I mentioned a while ago back here. Got back to the States and went back to college. Got my master's in geology and became a well-site consultant to drilling rigs. And in about 83, I was having problems with PTSD. And I went to these storefronts they had, the vet centers. And I spent 4 years of therapy there with them. Well, at the same time I was there, I went back to school again and got my master's working on my PhD in psychology because I wanted to be a vet counselor. Well, that's when Slick Willie cut the programs and moved all the vet centers back into the vet, the larger veteran building. And so I'm back in the oil field. They say you can't ever escape the oil field, which is true. And then, I don't know, 05 the doctor diagnosed me with Hep C, which I had got in the blood transfer. I was on whole blood in Vietnam at Can Tho for 3 days. And that's before they screened. And I also got Vivax malaria. And anyway, you know, up to 65, perfect health. 65, boy, everything started going into hell in the handbasket. And now I'm in, I live in, I have a house 6 blocks from here, but I'm at the Big Springs VA Medical Center on the 5th floor, and they call it the CLC, the Community Living Center. And it's quasi assisted living hospital. And we have nurses here, doctors, and I've been here 5.5 years. And what, 3 months ago, that's when I found, or when David found me. And it's really good to reconnect. So that's all.
Sure is, buddy.
Yeah.
All them poker winnings you got from me.
I know. What was funny is when I got hit and shot up, I had $2,200 in the damn safe. And
yeah, 600 of it was mine.
Yeah, I know. That was awful. I'll tell you what, I still remember it to this day. We were playing Jack's Trip. I had a queen high flush, and I didn't even bet. I just called and passed, and that's $2,200 in the pot. But anyway, that Frank was out on operation, and I owed him $600, and I told Top came to see me, and I told him to take that $600 and give it to Frank, and to take the rest of it and the team have a party. I don't know if they did or not, but anyway.
I don't remember. I was gone by then, Russ. I was in Cambodia. What did you guys have a party? Like,
I don't know. I was in the hospital.
Yeah,
I came back to El Paso, and I was in the hospital out there for 18 weeks. And, you know, so I don't know what happened after I got, what was on that day, the damn desktop wouldn't come in and pick me up because they said they were receiving hostile fire. Well, I fired a few rounds off in the tail, and I said, no, some of that's friendly fire. But I don't know if you remember him down at the B team. I mean, yeah, he was the B team.
Jim, remind me when exactly that date was.
May 8th, 1970.
Yeah, because I was in Cambodia, and I didn't know that you'd been medevac till I got back.
Yeah. Yeah, they medevaced me back to the B team. But do y'all remember Fang that flew the little Cayuse helicopter? He was out of that B team there at
Chi-Lang.
He was flew in between the damn banana trees sideways and touched down, and I was in a mortar hole. He touched down, and I reached out and grabbed and hooked my web gear on it, and he flew me down the side of the mountain. And then they loaded me into the helicopter and flew me into the B team. And anyway,
yeah, because that's where the CIG hospital was at B-43 at Chi-Lang.
Yeah. But one other thing, when I was at the 3rd Surge, and the night after they did my amputation, Colonel Healy came over.
Mm-hmm.
He and I spent about 3 hours talking together. And I was trying any way at all to get back to out to A415. And anyway, that's the first time I'd ever seen a colonel cry that night. And he told me something that stuck with me all these years. He said, you know, during this time in my life, I can always look back and know that I walked among men. And that stuck with me. Yeah, he gave me a bronze with meritorious. He took off his silver and pinned it on my bed stove, and I had a couple of bronze, Purple Hearts and stuff, but it never happened. It just stayed there, and it came back with me in a paper sack. I still have it in my little memo kit, but he was a hell of a commander. That's about it, guys. Any questions?
There was a colonel named that was the B team commander when I left Vietnam named Martin Beck, and he got killed up in the
yeah, he's the one that shot the
bomb. Yeah, and he took some other guys with him, but it was a disappointing commander, I thought.
Yeah, he what did they call that? The spiny back, but where they had seeded all those mines across the top of our AO.
Right.
Right.
And
I can speak to that. He got killed about 10 days after I turned over Tuyen Nhon to Louis Genesio, Captain Louis Genesio. Anyway, Beck, and you know, Beck was a character among other things.
Yeah.
He used to parade around with a gangster submachine gun.
Yeah.
But he was a good guy. But he came on out to the camp shortly after I left and picked up Genesio and my previous counterpart, Tuyen Nhon, and he had his counterpart with him to be the equivalent of the B-41 LLDB, and they were going out to recon a area where they were going to do a operation in the next couple of days. Got on out there along a plain of reeds, going towards Tuyen Nhon, as a matter of fact, and saw something shiny down one of the canals. Went on down to take a look at it and couldn't figure out what it was. There was a couple of other helicopters, incidentally, flying overhead too, so they monitored all this. But anyway, Beck proceeded to fire it up with his 45 caliber submachine gun, and it turned out to be a undetonated 500-pound bomb, and it blew the helicopter along with Beck, Genesio, both their counterparts, and the whole crew out of the sky, killed them all instantly. And I know all this because of the after action reports, and also talking to Bob Bidwell, who is the S3 B-41, who mounted the body recovery deal.
That's when you were at Tan Tree, though, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was 10 days after I had left Tan Tree. Genesio was my replacement,
Right.
and 10 days earlier, and I'd have been on a helicopter.
Yeah.
But anyway, best damn Vietnamese I worked with went up in smoke, along with my replacement, Colonel Beck, and pilot, co-pilot, crew chief, and door gunner. They're all on the wall. They're all on the wall in consecutive order.
Now, when you were at Trent Tree, how often did you guys get hit?
It wasn't that we got hit that often. We went and did a lot of operations and hit them. While I was there, I think we only really got rocketed a couple of times. FOB got hit a couple of times, but we were more into taking it to them than they were.
I mean, you were right out there in that little slot, right up in the.
Yeah,
port.
we call the
you
finger.
You couldn't do anything. You just went to Cambodia.
Yeah, yeah. And the deal was that we had a little airstrip there, but it was for helicopters, not big enough for even for a loach, or not big enough for a bird dog. But the even the helicopter had to come in from a certain angle in order to keep from going across into Cambodia. And supposedly, if we'd came under real siege, supposedly it would have taken General Abrams to pull us out, because he would had to authorize the fast movers and stuff like that from coming in to our support. So, but that had nothing to do with Tuyen Nhon. But yeah, that's the story.
But I mean,
that's a story on Beck.
Kind of as a mini history buff of Special Forces, what I failed to mention earlier, if I may, that stupid son of a bitch Air Force pilot that convinced me to go into the Army was a FAC at the Battle of Long Bay, and has a Silver Star and 4 distinguished flying courses during the time that he flew out of Utapao and Da Nang as a Cubby pilot.
Yeah. Well, I was going to be a helicopter pilot, except I ended up, when I went to do the tests and everything, I was colorblind. So I said, well, what else is available? And I just graduated from OCS. I was enlisted back for, well, yeah, you guys are all old too. But anyway, I joined the Army on my 17th birthday in 1956.
Wow.
Yeah, and I went to, just like some of you, airborne unassigned, went to Fort, they were just reorganizing the 101st Airborne, and they're reactivating it after World War II. And I went to Fort Campbell, went to jump school there, and just by coincidence, didn't know it at the time, but I was assigned to the Band of Brothers, Easy Company 506 Infantry. And of course, we didn't know anything about that shit back in those days. But I do remember that all of our NCOs and even the officers were World War II and Korean vets. And then Vietnam came along, and they said, would you like to go to OCS? I said, sure, I'll be more money. And and I did, and here we are. Okay, who's next?
That would be Gene. You were there about the same time as Jim Fox.
Yes, I came there, like I say, at the end of November of '69. And like I say, the first operation I went out was first part of December. And I don't know, there was an individual, I don't know who it was, had went up on top of the team roof and wrote a great big thing. It said, "Have a very fucking Merry Christmas."
Oh, Dave, guess who was the youngest guy on the team that did that?
Yeah.
and I understand that when we were on the operation, some general flying over in the Air Force happened to see that down there, and he actually landed and came into A415.
I was gone by
Is that correct?
That was a part of the wokeness.
Yeah.
Jimmy might have been there, or Russ. I was gone. I don't remember. I remember putting it up, but, or maybe that was when I came back from the hospital. No, because I was in the hospital during Christmas. No, I think it was. Yeah. Whatever. Yeah. No.
Do you
Well,
remember?
so
Wasn't my
anyways, and I was on a couple different operations out. I remember one operation I came back from. I had dysentery so bad that I was running high fever, and you were getting ready to medevac me if the fever hadn't broken. Correct? It's the way I remember it. And like I say, I went on and like we would run night hunter killer teams also out of 415, but we didn't have anybody on the airfield. When I was doing them, it was always the CNC ship, the flare ship, and 2 gunships that we would go out in.
Yep.
And anyways, one night they came and they said, which I was going on, they says, well, the flare ship had mechanical problems, so they outfitted the CNC ship to drop the flares. And we'd been dropping flares and nothing had happened. And it was the last flare, and the CNC commander decided, well, I'm going to follow the flare down and see if we can get any action. And anyways, so we're going down, and then the 2 gunships decide they're going to use the flare as target practice. And we were banked, and I'm looking up and I'm watching 2 rockets coming right at us. And I thought they were coming right through the side of the ship, but they went underneath us. And the other ship was firing his helicopter was firing his miniguns down in front of us. It didn't take long for the commander to chew their asses out, but you know, I really thought at that time that we were toast. And then probably the last operation I went on, other than I was supposed to go to Cambodia on that operation, but the last one I actually did out of 415 was down in Nui Koto. And we were up on Nui Koto, and it was time for us to get resupplied. And I told my counterpart that we had to go down off the mountain and set up a drop zone so that they could land and we could offload the material. And he wouldn't do it. He says, I'm not going to do that. So anyways, I told the supply that what was going on. He says, well, you know, we can't land. I said, I know that. And so he says, we'll just have to hover and we'll start kicking out all the stuff to you. And as they were kicking stuff out, a case of ammunition went up against the door gun, and the door gun started going off. And it ended up hitting a Vietnamese that was down there in the area that they were kicking off the supplies. And it turned out that the individual that got hit was a nephew to the XO of the company that we were down there with. And Sergeant Rudolph was on that operation with me. And anyways, he come running back up, and I says, well, what's going on? He says, well, the XO of the company is saying one Vietnamese, one American. And anyways, it turned out I was really good friends with the commander of that company, and he ended up taking the weapon away from his XO. But I called back to the B team trying to find out how bad his nephew got hit. And it turned out it wasn't that bad, but in the meantime, we're going back and forth. You know, they tell me at the B team, they says, well, we got 3 or 4 gunships here. He says, we'll take care of the problem for you. You know, and I'm saying that back to him. He says, what, you think that we're just going to walk down off this mountain while you take care of what's happening behind me? I says, they're not going to let us walk off this mountain. And anyways, we spent the whole night on top of Nui Koto with our backs to the big rocks up there. And we both didn't get any sleep that night because we really weren't sure what was going to happen. And then, like I was saying, I was supposed to go to into Cambodia, and Sergeant Rudolph, who was with me the time before, he took my place on the operation, and I was up at the B team, and I come around the medic area, and he was laying on a stretcher, and I asked him what happened. He says, "Well, I got shot." He said, "But I lucked out." He says, "Really?" He says, "Because the bullet actually went right over the top of his heart." But he said it just barely penetrated the skin. He says, "I don't know if the weapon, the ammunition was bad or wet or whatever." But I did find out later on that Sergeant Rudolph committed suicide. I was coming back to this area from Seattle area I think I was coming back for a class reunion or something. And I was going to look him up, and I got a hold of his mother, and I found out that he had actually killed himself, which was hard on me, because the strange thing about it, I actually wrestled him in high school. He was from Beloit, Wisconsin, and I was from Little Milton, Wisconsin. And yeah, it was really hard to find out that he had taken his own life. And then, like I say, I ended up closing down when they went through and closed all the A camps. And then the B team, I was a funds officer that actually closed out all the different A camps under B41 plus B41. So, and then, like I say, when I come back rotated back, I came back to Bragg to the 7th group. And I ended up, like I said earlier, the commanding officer of I think it was Company C of the 7th, ended up putting me on a go team, because he said I was the only combat experienced officer that he had in Company C at the time. So anyways, then I left on April 1st and got out of the Army. But then again, I went 3 years and I missed all the jumping, so I ended up going back in and joining the 12th group, Army Reserves.
Yeah, Gene, I did the same thing. I spent some time. There was a unit in South Bend. Between the time I got kicked out of college and decided to go in the Marine Corps, I went up there and made some cold weather jumps in Indiana.
I made my cold weather jumps at McCoy.
Oh, I've been up there a lot too. Yeah, or go up to Brainerd up in Minnesota, Fort Ripley.
Yeah, I actually had a real bad jump up there at McCoy. It was everything went okay, and we were actually jumping into an old Army mortar range, and I did my PLF. I was on the ground, and this big gust of wind came, and it picked my chute straight back up, and my feet went up, my head was down, and then when it came back down again, it just slammed me into the ground, totally knocked me out. I didn't even know what was going on, One of the guys was yelling at me, to cut loose, but he finally figured out I was knocked out. So
I've got a story if anybody wants to listen to it, and maybe Bob Hathaway, he might have been on this one. But Bob, you remember the Bobo Canal? You all remember the Bobo Canal? I'm sure you do. Bobo Canal was the canal that basically, Tuyen Nhon had a canal beside it, went out into the Bam Kadong River, and then right almost opposite it was another canal that separated 4 Corps from 3 Corps. Bobo Canal, we called it. And there was at one time, an Army unit way up at the end of it, just before you go into Cambodia, set up a fire base up there, and they stayed up there for a little while and ran operations out of that. But anyway, one day we went up the Bobo Canal, thinking that it was, the VC and MBA were bringing stuff down the canal at nighttime. So we're going to set up, and we had some intel. We set up an ambush along here. Trouble is, we forgot to let 3 Corps know that we were up there. And of course, we're all set up and everything and taking turns staying awake and all this stuff. And then at about 2 o'clock in the morning, I'm about to nod off. 2 o'clock in the morning, everybody gets sort of excited and look, and coming down the canal was not a big old sampan with a bunch of stuff on it, but was a goddamn firefly coming down the canal with its spotlight going back and forth on the canal. And then up above it, you could hear the womp, womp, womp of a couple of cobras. And I said to myself, oh shit. If they see us down here setting up alongside this canal, they're going to take and shoot us up. So I get a hold of the B team trying to figure out what the frequency was of the folks over in 3 Corps, because they were operating, I guess, off the same intel, looking for that sampan that was going up and down the canal. Anyway, the sampan goes right in front of me, lighting us all up. And by this time, I'd let the whole platoon that was with me let them know, don't you move. And through the interpreter, we said, don't move, don't look up, don't shine your weapon, do nothing. And the big old spotlight goes right by us. And I said, oh shit, they're gonna keep on going. That's good. It damn turned around and came on back. And he did it about 3 times. And all this time, I'm with the B team trying to get radio frequency to get them called off. Never could, and they never did see us. And finally, they wandered on off down the canal. But I tell you what, that was a puck effect there. And do you remember that, Bob?
I do, and Andrade was with us.
Who was with us?
Andrade, Robert Andrade.
Okay. Yeah.
That transferred to BT.
I do know that we went back when we finally called the Boston Whalers for us the first thing that morning, come pick us up and everything. But goddamn, we were lucky we didn't end up being friendly fire.
And now,
think about the time that you were there. You probably used airboats, Boston Whalers, helicopters, and swift boats.
Yeah.
I
did all that. Matter of fact,
yeah.
I don't know if you can hear me. You can see me, but I can't hear worth a shit. And I remember that because of the airboat operations. And we would go out in the airboat, and we used to joke to each other, say, hey, the only way we're going to tell if we're in an ambush if the guy beside us falls over dead. And it was pretty. But then you get back to the team house, and you can always tell who'd recently been on an airboat operation. Because somebody say something to you, say, huh? But 2 or 3 days, young and dumb, 2 or 3 days later, it sort of come back, but it never came back totally. Now I've got severe hearing loss. I got, and I don't know what you guys' experience has been with the VA and all that stuff, but when I retired from the Army, I had a good civilian doctor who said, you may think that you're in good shape now, but say you're going to have some problems. And he was right, skeletal problems. But so anyway, I put in for this and that and all that stuff. And it came on back from VA saying, yeah, we're going to give you some for your hips, and we're going to give you some for your legs, and we're going to give you some for your bad headaches and all that stuff. But your hearing, yeah, you've got a little problem hearing, but it's age related. Well, I had been using, I had a P3 profile and had been using Army issued hearing aids for 15 years. And VA said, we'll make a note of it, but we're not giving you anything for it. And that's when right then and there I realized that the VA system was a goddamn joke. It was like the guy who looks at your records and everything. It's like he's got a big pile of money, and whatever he saves at the end of the year, that's all part of their bonus. And it took me a while, but I, rolled the dice a few times, and here we are. I'm still alive.
Look, don't give up on the VA. My hearing is slight, but for service connected reasons. But they went ahead and issued me a $6,000 hearing aid system.
Oh yeah, these are too. I mean, I'm not bitching the VA. I'm bitching the system, but the VA itself, what I use them for is they take care of my hearing, they take care of my eyeglasses, stuff like that. But most of it I live right here right outside of Fort Bragg, and I'm able to thankfully I still use Fort Bragg for my for most of my health care.
Look, before I go on to Russ, who's the last here, let me try again to get our mystery guest to speak up and say something. Whoever this is that I labeled as who is this, please say something.
Hello.
Hello, speak. Well, that's not really getting us very far. Maybe someday we'll figure out who's the silent one with no picture. If you want to be anonymous on this thing, don't use the microphone, don't use the camera. On the other hand, I'm not sure. Okay, Russ.
Yes.
Round us up. You were there. I think you were there almost to the very end of the camp.
Yes, uh-huh.
Tell us what happened from
It
your
was very
whole time.
very unexciting.
Very
It was the
unexciting.
climax. Yes,
Hey,
it was the
Russ,
climax.
hey, Russ, I got a question for you. Did
Yeah.
you know Barnwell?
Did I know who?
Barnwell. The
Barnwell.
guy that replaced me.
No, I don't remember. Do you
Okay,
guys remember
okay.
the Lopez's?
I remember Lopez, but
Do you-
okay. Here,
Do you
I
remember
talked to-
the Lopez brothers?
Yes.
Right, both of them. The guy that supposedly, I talked to Ernie Kirk years ago. He got in contact with me, right?
Yeah, I
He
was
said
down in
that-
Seafloat when he got shot.
He said that him and another, this Barnwell guy that was my replacement, that Barnwell got killed on the first operation that he did, and part of, you told me about this, about Seafloat. And I never heard about Seafloat.
Yeah, that place sucked, man. It was all water and mud for as far as you could see, as far as you can walk, except for the river. So that was not a nice place. But that's where Ernie Kirk got shot down there.
Yeah, well, but he was evidently with Barnwell.
Yeah, I don't know. There was another American. See, Ernie was on the other side of the river. He was on the other side of the river. See, the Navy had a big boat right in the middle of the river. And on the other side was, I guess it was a rough buff camp. And the teams that were rotating in were on that would have been the west side of the river, west side of the Mekong. But when Ernie got shot, him and the other American, whoever it was, they were over in the rough buff camp, because I remember we got notified on our side that there was a casualty, a U.S. casualty over there. So I went on over, and sure enough, it was Ernie. And me and another American helped put him on a chopper, but I don't recall who it was.
Well,
my mind is
Raymond,
gone.
Yeah, according to Steve, Raymond Barnwell was my replacement, and he's the guy that got killed on the first operation.
He got killed down there? Yeah, when I was there that month, there was no kill.
Well, this
Ernie's the only one that got
hurt.
I mean, the only American. We lost some locals, some CIDG. Right. But Ernie was the only American that got hit.
August 23rd, 1970.
That was Bramwell, and that's the day that Kirk got a Silver Star and a Purple Heart.
Yep.
So that is Bramwell.
Ernie got it? So there was, somebody got killed, you say?
Bramwell got killed. He was a demo man. He was an engineer.
Right, he took
Oh,
my,
he was,
he took my
I don't
spot.
know who then the other American was.
That was Bramwell.
Ernie and
No, to
Dan,
help me
Ernie,
put Ernie on a chopper.
Well,
yeah,
Whatever.
but Bramwell got killed the same op.
Yeah, it must have been later.
no,
That could have been.
23rd of August, Kirk got a Silver Star, and Bramwell got killed.
Yeah. I'm
Ernie
sure they
was a
gave him a
piece of
silver
work.
too. Who, Bramwell?
No, Ernie. That,
Oh, yeah, I know. I know when, when I saw him, he was on a stretcher. And, he looked at me and he apologized. He said, "I'm sorry, sir." And I said, "For what, man?" He said, "I failed at my job." And, coming from Ernie, that was something. It really was. And it sticks to me to this day. And that's the last time I've ever seen him.
well,
Other than, I guess, a
he
couple of
stayed in
years
the Army
ago.
National Guard out in Arizona for a long time.
Yeah, a couple years ago, he and I were in contact over something, but it was only like an email here, an email there. It wasn't much, but I'll always remember him, apologizing when he was on a stretcher for not doing his job. He did his job, man. No problem.
His email is on the list, the two list here, and it's a valid email.
Well, we'll send him
Yeah.
an email and bust his chops for not doing this.
Yeah, do it.
Yeah.
Look, this is the last camp.
Other than that, I mean, it's like I say, this was my second year there, and there wasn't much that I saw the second year that I hadn't already seen the first year. But there is one other thing I remember is my first year, we were putting a camp in called Dukwe. We were it's one in Third Corps. We're about 3 clicks from the parrot's nest, parrot's beak, excuse me. And one morning, I guess it was about 7 o'clock, we had sent a company out early. And about 7 o'clock, all hell broke loose from the Cambodian border. So, we had comms for maybe, I don't know, 5 or 6 minutes, and we lost comms. And to make a long story short, I went out with a team sergeant and, with a reaction force, and we ran into some shit. B-36 sent a company in right behind us. They sent a couple more companies up to the north. We found the Camo guys. His name was Thomas Grix. He was a Spec 4. Only been in country 2 months. And we found a bunch of dead Cambos. Out of the company, 6 Cambos survived. And the lieutenant that was with Grix, they found him going from, the Mike Force found him going from foxhole to foxhole, or not foxhole, but let's say, shell hole to shell hole. And by the time they found him, he was completely out of ammo. His name was Bolton, I believe, Lieutenant Bolton. This was in December of '67, right before Tet. And so, like I say, I think Mike Force wound up with 3 companies out there. I believe the 25th sent some troops down. And I'll always remember, that night, you see, we had Spooky, and you see Spooky's, excuse me, COPD sitting on. You see Spooky's traces going down, and you see about 5 or 6 lines of traces going back up. So anyways, that was it for that period. But in Tuyen Nhon, I was the assistant intel guy, and I did a lot of the interrogations. And once upon a time there, they had brought in a guy who was well-built, nice haircut. He was strapped. He was military, you could tell. So I started interrogating. To make a long story short, come to find out, he was the lieutenant colonel in charge of one of the battalions that hit us in December of '67 up in 3rd Corps. And we had captured him and brought him down to out of Tuyen Nhon. Then we sent him back to Kantarwak. But that's another thing I'll never forget. Is capturing a son of a bitch that just, messed up people's world. So we lost 85 Cambos and 1 American out of that one ambush by 2 battalions of NBA. So not a good day. That's it.
I have a question. Has anybody gone back to Vietnam?
Is anybody what?
Gone back to Vietnam?
Going back?
I
In
was
my
back.
mind,
I was back
Going
in
back to
'97.
2011. I got
I
all the
was
way
back
down to
last
Tuyen
night.
Nhon. There wasn't a bridge over the river to get down to where the camp was. But I took a picture of the Tuyen Nhon village, and the French Canal. We called it the French Canal, the one that went straight up along the border.
Yeah.
The Bobo Canal.
Yeah, the Bobo Canal. And then we took a golfing tour. My best buddy was came out of Afghanistan, and because we decided I wanted to go back, and I did a full tour, and I went down to make it short so how things work. The last remaining missing in action soldier, Marine or Green Beret from Long Bay, was discovered. Sweeney was discovered. His remains were discovered in February of 2011. So my buddy's brother is a senior lawyer for the POWMIA program. So we got to go up and went all the way down Highway 9 and went all the way to Long Bay. And guess what? Guess what is on the site of the Long Bay Special Forces Camp?
Memorial to North Vietnamese.
There's one, but what if you go right? What is there? Friggin' bar. There's a concrete cafe bar right on the site of the damn A-team. So we did all that. Went across the DMZ and went to Hue and Da Nang and Da Lat. It ended up being a great trip. But again, I went because of the history involved. I wanted to see things that you guys maybe experienced. I wanted to see what the whole countryside looked like, because I live in the Delta now, right? I can see Parris Island, South Carolina, across the damn river. I mean, when you look across the Low Country, it's the Mekong Delta. It's water and little islands and streams, and that's what it is. And I look at it and say, we lived that. I mean, we lived the sampan ops, the riverboat ops. If you got lucky and got dropped in, with a helicopter. But by and large, you talk about a sampan op, people look at you like, yeah, we were in a little fucking canoe, right? They don't understand that. But yeah, we went, and it ended up being great. I spent my, whatever 2011 was, my birthday in Saigon. And we saw no other Americans the whole time we were there. We saw no police presence. And we saw a lot of Russian and Israeli people who were involved with it. But it was quite a trip.
I think Captain Kittredge was gone to Tantry, but kind of a famous person visited Tuyen Nhon for a briefing. Colonel Robert Rowe, who was the CO.
Right.
Do what?
Yeah. Colonel Rowe came to all of the camps when he took
Yeah.
over. He came out to Tan Tree also.
Yeah. And the funny thing was that the guy, Robert Marasco, and I don't know if any of y'all know that name, but he and Robert Marasco were the ones involved with the, and it cost Colonel Rowe his career with the triple agent. But I went to the SFOC with Marasco, and I hadn't seen him since
great.
then. But I think he might have been at Tan Tree some, wasn't he?
He was. I mean, the whole thing unraveled while I was there.
Yeah.
Yeah. So,
You guys might be interested to know that Westmoreland took a special interest in Tuyen Nhon. He came out to the site, with 21 helicopters.
Wow.
And walked around the grounds as it was being constructed.
21 helicopters?
21 helicopters.
Why the hell did you land them all?
Well, that's a good question. I was always comforted, at Makwa because there's a great landing strip there. But he came with all those helicopters and armed individuals, surrounding him. But he seemed very relaxed. And my team captain asked me to stay on the radio as long as he was on the ground. And so I'm inside a tent, and I'm thinking to myself, why, he's got all these helicopters and all these guns surrounding him. What good am I going to do inside the tent here, on the radio? Who's going to come to help? We've got all the help we can need. But I was impressed that he showed up, he came unannounced.
Yeah. Now, General Abrams also came to Tuyen Nhon when the Swift boats, the PBRs were there. They set up along a little canal right along the airstrip because we had the airstrip and we also had the canal there. But he came on out and got a briefing from the likes of Jesus Christ. I'm having a brain freeze here. Anyway, he came out and got a briefing from them after they'd had that big incident where that Dallas Pageant had got killed, and I was there at the briefing, and it was all about the Navy. They didn't mention at all that they were the only reason they were there is because we had the reaction force and we had the airstrip and all that stuff. And I ended up shaking Abrams' hand, and he just sort of looked the other way, and shook my hand and kept on going. Didn't ask us what we were doing or anything like that. But that was my only experience with General Abrams.
Well, you speak about things that happened at Tuyen Nhon. Chuck had already left. We had a caribou get stuck on the airstrip.
We had a C-123 got stuck there.
Caribou stayed there for like 3 months. I swear to God. It was there forever, it felt like.
And we had to put sedge down there to.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But one of my claim to fame is, and I didn't ask you, I took, how we always, during the rainy season, they dropped all those supplies in with those pallets.
Yeah.
I made a basketball court and put a thin layer of cement over that basketball court right outside from the 105 base. So when I got bored, when I wouldn't have to build something or do anything or going out, I went out and practiced my basketball shot the whole time. And then finally they sent an email out, or not email, but they sent out a message that said, we need to collect all those pallets. So me and the boys went out and destroyed my basketball court, and we took all those pallets down to the airstrip, and they came in and picked them all up and took them out.
Yeah.
But as far as dignitaries, we had George Papard came through, and Martha Ray came through, and Martha came through. The only living, as far as I can tell, the only living members of our team are Chuck, Jim, and I that were on that original team that that in the fall of '69 that took their picture. Maybe Ed Carrillo is still alive, but
Ed's
not
still
here.
alive.
He is?
It is.
Yeah. Lieutenant Hathaway probably remembers this, but we had a, I think it was C-123, came on in to resupply something, and it got off the PSP and sunk right in, and they had to call, and they stayed overnight with us, and they called for a team to come on in and with air bladders and all that stuff, blow the thing up to the point where they could take and tow it back onto the PSP and then fly away. But yeah, that was a big attraction would have been a big attraction for the VC too and the NBA, but it's a big attraction for the whole CIDG village. They come on out and around that C-123 that had sunk there on the edge of the PSP.
Yeah.
I
One of the
remember
other anecdotes is one of the UDT lieutenants that was at Tuyen Nhon when we were there with the riverboats.
Yeah.
Ended up at Ball State University teaching scuba diving, and I got my certification through his class at Ball State University. And we started talking and realized that we were there at the same time.
Remember those SEALs, or I think that's what they called themselves.
Well,
that were getting all of the explosive in the big, the wooden crates. There was a flat wood like plywood.
Right.
And they would tear them down, and we kept getting them. Me and one of the interpreters started a little business of selling those to down in the village, and they would build down in the village out of those. And I used a lot of them to help put in the rooms, but we took all the money that we made and put it in the team fund.
Yeah.
But I don't know. You could see boats loaded with nothing but like 4 foot square plywood sailing down. I mean, they were on sampans, river taxis, but it was great. I took one of the SEALs out on operation with me and Top, and the second day out, we had to medevac him, and I kept kidding the SEALs how we get out, you get away from water too long. And what he was heat stroke, which he didn't take enough fluids in, but it was something else on the SEALs.
Jim, question for you. Was the dispensary still Dallas Dispensary when you were there?
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm sure that they, shortly after when the Rough Puff took over, they probably took that piece of plywood down and used it for something else.
Yeah. I took, I had Google Earth for a while, and I kind of followed Tuyen Nhon along, and yeah, it disappeared. It went to Rough Puff, and then
yeah, it was a good piece of plywood, so I'm sure they used it for something.
Yeah.
If I could share an anecdote, I mean, it probably has little to no relevance in this conversation, but I think you should know. I was one of the first, maybe 10 people assigned to the 3rd Special Forces. It was in the RTC area at Bragg. And I was right out of branch. And they put us into language training because right off the bat, our assigned operational area was going to be the Southern Sahara, and the area of operation was going to be the Belgium Congo. And we studied maps and rivers and dams and a whole bunch of stuff and Swahili. And boy, I got pretty damn good in Swahili, because we had the language class half a day, every day, And lo and behold, one day I'm sitting there, with the headphones on and trying to imitate the instructor. And I get a tap on the shoulder, and I've been reassigned to the 5th Special Forces. And everybody knew that that's the GO team, that's the GO unit, going to Vietnam. Yep. And so off I go. I meet the team that I've been assigned to, but I still got Swahili lessons. And I said to the sergeant, my team sergeant, I got these lessons. So they put me in Vietnamese lessons, which were next door. And as it turns out, I wind up in Vietnam, unable to speak the language. I'm more familiar with Africa than I am with Asia. And it was just like your whole world just sort of goes, what is going on? It was a very exciting time, but at the same time, it's quite confusing. I could never anticipate what was next in my life during that period.
One of the stories that I got from people was back there in January of 1968 when the Koreans took over the ship there. These guys in the first group got an alert in the middle of the night. They weren't being told where they were going. They got all their cold weather gear together, all ready to go do something in Korea to rescue that spy ship. And when the airplane lands, say again? Pueblo, yeah, that's right. The airplane lands in Thailand. And they're there with all their cold weather gear. And their job was to train a Thai regiment to go into Vietnam.
I just gotten out of German school when I went to Vietnam. Yeah.
Well, I did. I went to a year of Vietnamese language school before going. And at one time, I could actually, if they wasn't talking real fast, I could pretty well follow the conversation. And I could read it fairly well. But it's a lost language. I don't know any of it anymore.
Well, I had 3 months of Vietnamese language school. And I went to Vietnam. I was second in the class, and that's only because the guy who was first outranked me. But I went to Vietnam, and I ended up with 3 interpreters and a counterpart that wanted to learn English.
Yeah.
I ultimately married a Vietnamese woman who tells me that when I speak Vietnamese, I hurt her ears. So much for language training. But I've always been tone deaf in my language studies, even in school, trying to learn French.
I think really Macy had 3 tours in Vietnam. He'd been there so long. He spoke perfect Vietnamese. He even would squat. You remember how they used to squat down and talk? Riley would. That's the way he talked when they have a meeting or something. That's where they were. He'd been there long enough that I think he was part of Vietnamese. He was a good guy.
And Riley Macy?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. You do know he passed away about 2 years ago.
Yeah. Yeah, I did know. Yeah.
As a matter of fact, I'm fairly good friends with his Vietnamese interpreter, I guess you would call her. She's here in the States. She lives in California now.
How about it? Yeah. One other thing I remember at the airstrip, at Christmas time, Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer Caribou would land at Tuyen Nhon and bring us supplies.
The one with the painted right there where the propeller is, where it's painted red.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It had a red nose that was in the front of the plane, and it had Rudolph on the side of the plane.
Right.
We were talking about speaking the language, and of course I didn't, but we had a Vietnamese counterpart. He was a lieutenant, a good guy, as it turns out. But anything said to him had to be said to an interpreter, and the interpreter spoke to him. And then he spoke, and the interpreter, and we got in some shit one day, and I'm talking, and this man said, as clearly as I'm going to say to you right now, he said, "God damn it, Leach, slow down. I can't understand anything you're saying."
Yeah.
Do you remember Tom?
I can't understand anything you're saying.
Yeah. Do you remember?
Gentlemen, I'm going to leave you. Thank you so much.
All right.
Been great.
Hey, Chuck,
Good to
great
see you.
seeing you again, bud. If you ever
What?
get down to South Carolina, look me up.
I will. Jim, good. Dave Kirkwood, Jim, good seeing you all of you. Thank you for being. Thanks for being here.
All right. We're coming sort of the end of the time anyway. So I hope you guys will take advantage of that photo website and put things up there. Also, this is the last of the teams in B41 that I'm doing. I only have the 6 teams that are involved in B40 to finish the whole country. I'm just surprised at this point in the 8 months that I've been doing this, that there's anybody who didn't know enough about this to show up. They really missed something great. So,
They did. I can't believe that they didn't show up either, some of them. Yeah.
Yeah, it's really amazing day. It made my day.
Yeah.
We'd like to thank you, Steve, for putting it together.
Yes,
Yes, Steve, this is
Thank you
tremendous.
very much, Steve.
This is really tremendous.
well, just
Steve,
get after the people who didn't show up and give them help.
Yeah, we're talking about him.
Thank you,
All right.
Steve.
Yeah.
Cap Kittredge, send me that picture of me that you talked
I
about.
will do that. You live in Rocky Mount, is that correct, Bob?
I do live in Rocky Mount, yes.
Yeah, I live right down in Fayetteville.
Oh, do you?
Yeah.
Okay, well-
Anyway, but Steve, are you going to do this for Fank?
No, I've been doing this for 8 months. I wrote a book about Fank. It's the paper is all gone, but it's a who's who from Fank.
Yeah.
So there's the things that I wrote about where there was a large group of people I put into books, and the 8 teams I couldn't do that for, but I really felt their history needed to be recorded.
Yeah, because Steve knows this, but when I went back to Vietnam, Special Forces is already gone. They've been kicked out by Abrams, but we were still there. And I was fairly well a big part of Frank during training the Cambodians. And then after that program phased out, we did MTTs all over. And like I say, I was there when we had peace with dishonor, and we turned everything over within 30 days and left the country.
Yeah, it was sad.
Yeah.
Thank you, Steve, for your work, man. You're an amazing guy.
Yeah.
Well, it's been a lot of fun. I hope that you enjoyed it as much as I have. If you haven't got the Green Beret magazines, I hope you'll get them. I hope you'll put photos up there, and I hope you'll talk amongst yourself. There's no reason that this conversation has to stop. You've got addresses for the people on your teams. There's nothing preventing you from doing this by yourself. What I did was use a skill that I have and some help that I had to find the addresses. You keep it up, you'll find more people and get them together. You can do a Zoom meeting by yourself. 40 minutes on Zoom is free. You don't have to have an account the way I have. Do some short 40-minute get-togethers. Just click on the to button and send all those names out. So it's not a big deal.
Yeah.
Hey,
The
Steve,
big thing that I could add is that you look at us all. We ain't getting any younger, and if we don't do this pretty soon, all these stories are going to be lost. And if you haven't written a book, maybe you should consider it, or a short story or something like that, because your kids won't know, your grandkids won't know, and nobody will know. And maybe that's the way you want it, but personally, a guy on the other team, Terry McIntosh, convinced me that I ought to write a book. And God, if high school dropout can write a book, why, you guys can too.
Hey, Al, is your name Victoria?
Hey, what?
Same thing my wife. That's the same thing my wife says. Steve, did you do one on B-36?
Did a CD-ROM on all each of the Mike forces. All the
Okay, because my buddy Pete Kivlin was with B-36, and I hadn't seen him for 30 years, and we met up in Boston about 20 years ago.
That was a good SOA convention. Yeah.
Okay.
Good luck to you guys. Enjoyed being with you.
Take care. Jimmy, you take care of yourself. Gene, it's good meeting you again in a long time.
Same here.
Believe it.
Thanks a lot.
Yep.
Steve, I pledge that I will send you a book, and I'll send you some photographs.
Very good. Thank you.
Thanks a million, Steve.
I'd like to ask a favor of you. Would you forward all of my contact information to Swin?
Will do.
All right. Thank you.
Okay.
Ciao, you guys.